Yeah, we just have to run something in the paper. by
9 o'clock.
November or something.
You got something?
Ready? Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, August 17th, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and up.
Minutes and reports received and filed.
We have none this week.
Commissioner Committee Liaison Reports, upcoming meetings and events.
Campbell Board of Directors meeting tomorrow, Broadband Task Force meeting Thursday. Chamber Connections Thursday. That's about it.
Salute to America board meeting tomorrow, Heartland Port Authority board meeting on Thursday.
Okay. Yeah, I've got the broadband on Friday. I've got a Zoom with a company CGI, which is a member of MACO, so I'm gonna give them. And then Monday, we've got a medical WebEx at 8, so that's all I've got. Any commission comments? Bids and contracts, bid award of 2021-20 propane provision and services.
For 2021 propane provision and services, we had 3 vendors submit proposals for it. Our recommendation is to go with MFA Oil out in California. Their cost per gallon was $1.30 for up to 5,000 gallons. And I did talk with Eric about it, and he's okay with it.
So the other two have the caps on them. If we go over that, so what's the chances of us going over that?
You guys went over it before.
Okay. So you're comfortable just going with the 5,000, leaving it at that? Okay. Only question I had about it.
Have we done business with that vendor before?
Last year's was 3 Rivers. I think the past 2 years might have actually been them.
Yeah, I don't know on that, Harry. I know that we solicit bids from MFA Oil for gasoline and diesel.
Okay.
But I don't know if we've ever done on propane side.
So the contract calls for a fixed rate per gallon for the first
5,000.
5,000 gallons. After that, it's market price is whatever, or if we were to exceed the 5,000, it's going to be whatever the market demands. Is that what happens?
Whatever they want to give it to us at. The other 2, we were capped at 5,000. They were staying the same.
Okay. Right.
But MFA Oil didn't mention a price for that.
So you could also rebid at 5,000, like if you know you're getting close to the 5,000, you could rebid for another 5,000 or whatever. So you do have that option as well.
But the 5,000 covers our usage history on an annual or a seasonal basis? Okay.
Unless we had a really, really bad winter, but I'm aware of it. That would be.
Is it out at your shop? Is that where the propane is? Okay. Wear another coat?
I can cool me on this anyway.
Okay.
Keep the garage doors closed.
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions. Got it?
No, I'm fine with going with MFA.
All right, we have contract today,
No,
so
we
you
don't.
just want us to award it?
Mhm.
All right, make a motion to award 2021-20 propane provision and services to MF Oil
Of California.
of California.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and signing of crisis cooperative agreement.
Good morning. As
Morning.
part of DHSS's, I think it's part of their Public Health Emergency Preparedness Program, they offered us the opportunity in December, actually probably in November, to submit a proposal for this crisis cooperative agreement funding. So in December, Chris submitted a proposal to try to get a generator for our building. for vaccines, because, you know, if the power goes out, we have to quickly come into the building, pack up the vaccines while they're still at the proper temperature, take them to St. Mary's because we have a agreement with them, you know, barring that they're also not out of power, to try to keep them in the refrigerator, because it's a pretty tight window that the vaccines have to be kept in. And I think Dana looked at any given time, we have, you know, between $40,000 and $60,000 of vaccines in the refrigerators, depending on what time of year it is. And now we have the ultra cold vaccines for the COVID-19 vaccine. So they did award us $119,382 that has to be spent by March. Right? we just received notice of this. So I'll let Chris talk. He's been talking to Meyer Electric, and I think Greg's been on the discussion too about the generator, maybe just for a portion of the building, not the entire building.
And trying to figure out the details and the sizing, it was tough to get a hold of Meyer. They're busy right now. They think it's manageable, but there's a lot of details with the proposal that I don't know if and what's allowable. So if it's just on the generator, or if there's install costs that's allowable for that, that's kind of the unknown. And I still have to submit back to them of what, even though I put in for, we were wanting a generator, because of the dollar amount, they still have to approve it again. So that's kind of figuring out of all the costs involved of the unknowns right now.
Yeah, we wanted to bring it to you today because we're on a short time frame to get it spent by March. But, you know, knowing that we still have some details to work out, and then our ask is that if, like, the generator's covered, but maybe some of the install costs or wiring or other parts are not covered, if perhaps that could be funded out of the capital improvement or the CARES money, because it is for the COVID-19 vaccine viability with the temperature. So that's why I wanted kind of to talk about it today, not necessarily just have you sign it, because there's still some unknowns that, again, we don't want to wait too long because it is such a tight time frame to get it bid. And if we have to bid it, or if it's sole source, it's sole source through Meyer, right?
Sole source, we can buy the generator, sole source, we can use Meyer for sole source.
Yeah, I think,
But it would
I
just-
think, yeah, we can use some of the relief money if need be, or whatever, because,
I think we have lots of options. So
Yeah.
We did health department salaries with CARES, so we have that money sitting in general we could use.
okay,
We could consider a capital improvement and use capital improvement sales tax. We could also look into using the ARPA funding. So I think there's multiple
Yeah.
options that we could use to cover the remaining cost that's not
If,
covered by
yeah,
the
and
agreement.
if there is any, I mean, it might cover it all, we might not need any extra.
Yeah.
But I think the generator, you know, would be a really good investment. It would, like we said, it wouldn't cover the whole building, but at least a portion of the building where the vaccine refrigerators are.
yeah, no, I think that's imperative we do that,
Okay.
Sounds reasonable, yes.
yeah.
Yep, proceed. So do you need us to
Go ahead and sign the contract then.
sign the,
We don't have an exact dollar amount
Okay,
on
do we
that.
need to make a motion?
We do have an exact dollar amount on the agreement. We don't have exact dollar amount on the generator and the install costs.
Got it.
But we do know it's $119,382.
Usually
Okay.
we sign-
but if something comes up way over, it's
We
way
could
over
always-
that, we can say, okay, we
We
quit.
don't want it, right, but,
And it's reimbursement, correct? Like,
Correct.
To get it, so
Yeah.
correct.
we don't, yeah, no, we don't get it.
Correct. Yeah, we could also say, and there might be some flexibility that if the generator just doesn't work out, but we think of something else, we might be able to submit and get that approved too. Because I would imagine the state has a deadline to spend the money that's coming from the federal government.
I'll make a motion to sign with the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services a program services contract, tracking number 50163, for our contract start 3/16/2020 through 3/15/2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, signing of contract for 21-19 Carnegie Building Steps.
I have the contract ready for the Carnegie Building steps with All Seasons Landscaping, and then as well with CMPS to do the engineering services. But I think there was going to be some discussion on it.
Yes, I want to state the following. As of this morning, the Missouri Department of Revenue website lists 17 Cole County businesses with a revoked sales tax license. The vendor, All Seasons Landscaping and Construction, is one of the 17. The revocation date was December 16th of 2020. The Missouri Department of Revenue previously notified the Cole County Treasurer of the revocation back in December of 20, and the Cole County Treasurer forwarded the revocation notice to the Cole County Collector the next day, December 17th, and it was forwarded to the Cole County Collector so that the Cole County Collector could revoke the Cole County Merchants License tax of All Seasons Landscaping and Construction, Inc. But the collector could not find that All Seasons Landscaping had a county merchant's license. Therefore, they couldn't revoke a license that didn't exist. City of Jefferson does show that All Seasons has a current business license. However, the city had not been notified about the state revocation. They are now aware of it. They have sent All Seasons a certified letter saying they had 10 days to come up with a tax clearance letter, or a hearing would be set to revoke their city business license. When you look at the Department of Revenue website, which lists these revoked licenses, it says the following: a business may have its sales tax license revoked for failure to remit sales tax collected from its customers to the Department of Revenue, or for failure to remit income tax withheld from its employees to the Department of Revenue. So I oppose the signing of a contract with a business when there is an open question as to whether or not the business is paying its taxes and is in violation of complying with a licensing requirement, along with the failure to pay a licensing fee to the county. Businesses who wish to provide goods or services through Cole County must be properly licensed, excuse me, and be able to provide a tax clearance letter from the Missouri Department of Revenue. I'm going to vote no on a contract with All Seasons Landscaping and Construction, Inc. because of this.
Can we get some clearances on that stuff? Follow-ups on that? We check with them on it?
Check
Sign it?
with All Seasons.
Because that's who we're going to award it to, or that's who we voted to award it to, so.
Yeah, I cannot vote to sign a contract as long as this,
So I think this brings up a bigger discussion that maybe we need to have as well, as far as our contracts and RFPs, to include a provision about this specific instance. Something stating that we can request that tax clearance letter. If it's requested, you must provide one. Also, that you are currently meeting all of the requirements of the city and state to be a vendor with the county. So we'd like to work on some language that can be added to all contracts going forward and all RFPs.
We could cut and paste from actually a city contract with the same vendor, as a matter of fact,
Okay.
which reads as follows. Excuse me. It shall be the obligation of the contractor to apply for, pay for, and obtain all permits and/or licenses required by any governmental agency for the provision of those services contemplated herein. I think that's a cure that we don't currently have in our purchasing contracts.
Yeah, vendors. Yeah, we need that.
well, I guess we can table action on this for a week or something like that, and if All Seasons can get this taken care of quickly, otherwise we'd probably have to go back and look at our other bids and select a different contractor.
So we have one issue is the state tax. right?
Mhm.
Okay, the merchant's license, they're not necessarily selling merchandise. You don't necessarily have to have a merchant's license.
I've been told, Jeff, I won't go on, I won't verify this as we sit here, but I believe that there are sales that occur for dirt, mulch, other things that folks can purchase on site. Usually the locals will not license someone who's been revoked at the state level. It has to be active. And then the tax clearance letter
I
is
think
an
we
issue.
have Several different businesses doing business as, so, I mean, there's a lot of things that, I mean, he's not here to able to answer the questions, so I think we need to get them clarified.
And I can work with Jill on creating some type of letter or and mail it certified or something.
Well, the city is doing it by certified because their own internal rules require that whenever they have a issue with a vendor, the vendor has to be notified by certified mail and given 10 days to cure the problem. That's their own internal. We don't have that, but I guess a good business practice is to advise the vendor that the contract is in sort of suspense and until and unless the following is completed.
Shoot him an email, a phone call, anything.
Yeah, so we will just
We got we need some stuff
take no action.
that, you know, we need clarification on before we can take action on it. So,
Yeah,
and if he wants to come up to the meeting next Tuesday and talk to us about it. So, this is the first I heard about it, so.
yeah, so, yeah. I think we will just table that then. Okay, do we have any unfinished business?
Yes.
Go right back to
Oh.
that,
Oh.
We do.
so do we have if we do that policy, we just need to bring that up and. add that to the
I don't know if it
purpose.
would necessarily be a policy, it would be language added to both the contracts going forward and when we put out an RFP,
Yeah,
that we can request that information.
yeah. Okay. So I think we need to get that on there, cause this could save some headaches later on.
Yep.
Yeah,
This is about the parking lot purchase. And, so I contacted, I forwarded an email from Randy Kessler to you all. He had done some
You
research.
probably need to have the microphone, Jill,
Oh, okay.
or if you wanna come up to the table.
Okay, this is about the parking lot purchase from Jefferson City. Talked to Randy Kessner at Cole County Abstract, and he's going to start the work. But I also talked to Ryan Melman, the city attorney, and Ryan suggested that perhaps they could give us a quitclaim deed, and then we wouldn't have to buy title insurance. So, that's your call. Do you want to go that route, or do you want to go ahead and go the full route of the title research and title insurance?
They've owned it for as long as I've known, and I think my only concern would be if somebody else tried to come in and make claim to the fact that they owned it. But I think even for the length of time that they've owned it, 12, 15 years or longer, that through adverse possession, they own it, and if they're gonna quit claim deed it to us.
Right.
We're the only ones taking the risk. We're not borrowing money, so we don't have to have a title insurance for the borrower or the lender, so.
And Randy did find a couple warranty deeds deeding that property to the city, and that's what I just forwarded you all this
Okay.
morning.
Yeah, I think what Jill says, let's just move with it.
yeah, I think
Quit
I,
claim deed, and we'll still go through the title work, obviously,
Jeff, you want to make a motion, just so we have that up
to
vote
go
on the
ahead
record?
and proceed with the quit claim deed. Yeah, you got any more questions? Okay, I make a motion that we allow Jill to proceed with the quit claim deed paperwork.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Go for it. Okay, do we have any other unfinished business? New business accounts payable review,
We do not have accounts payable today.
discussion of tax levy for 2021.
And this is the once-a-year tax levy discussion. It's on there for next week, Tuesday, for the public hearing, and then for the setting of the tax levy. You guys set two tax levies, one is the general fund and one is the public works fund. After the Board of E is over, we come up with the value of the property. We put that through the state auditor's calculation to what the levy ceiling could be for us versus we have a little thing with the general fund with the rollback of the 60% of the EMS sales tax that we have to do a calculation for. And putting all that information in there, I am going to suggest next week that we take the general fund levy down to .0619, and it was at, last year, sorry. And it was at .0712 because of the rollback. Basically, our sales tax went higher than what we anticipated it being. And then I would also suggest that we take the road and bridge tax levy to its ceiling, which last year was .2725, and for 2021 it would be .2779. And basically all of that is for new construction. Assessed valuation only changed by a little over 2% from the one year to the next, and mostly all of that is due to new construction.
Actually, more than all of it is due, isn't it? Because without new construction, the assessed valuation of real estate in Cole County is less now than it was a year ago.
That'd be true.
Has the decline in the first number you gave me there, the
General fund.
the general fund, is that been on a declining glide path since we've had the EMS?
It definitely has every year that we've had that rollback for procedure
Right.
in there. It has taken our tax levy down each year.
How is it, this is from .0712 to .0619? Is that about the step down that we've experienced in the past?
Well, so as sales tax grows, that number will come down. We
Right.
had a fairly large year last year,
Right?
so you're seeing that fairly large decrease this year. So it depends on the growth in sales tax, what decrease in property tax you're seeing.
So it's a balancing maneuver. If sales tax is up, then property tax goes down, so we're both on the same level again. So if sales tax would happen to go down, then the tax levy could go up for us, just so we stay balanced. That's how it's intended for. Now, if this, some counties are heavily dependent on their sales tax, which then confuses the whole situation. Right now, I think we're evenly level. Will we get to some point where we don't even have a tax levy? Could, if our sales tax keeps going up.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Well, it's due to the way we some years ago said to the voters, let's enact a EMS sales tax, and for every dollar of sales tax we collect from that, we send 60 cents of it back in a reduction of the levy in lieu of taxes, yes, okay. So it's really just a mathematical exercise. And you have to guess, at this time, you're guessing what the sales tax receipts are going to be for the second half of the year. Well, you know the first half. And if you're not perfect in your guess, it's going to result in another,
Change in the next year.
yes, okay.
So really, there's no action today, just discussion of it. If you have any questions, I know this always comes before the budget comes, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. It's just that way for school districts, for anybody else who has a tax levy, unfortunately. But if you guys want to talk any more about it, we can. But it is definitely set for next week for the public hearing, and it's in the paper. So it goes in the paper, and it already has. And Harry, for your benefit, our history has always been to set that notice in the paper at the ceiling. And if you guys come back at the hearing and reduce it, then so be it. At least you put the notice in the paper.
Okay.
Because it, by statute, it's like 15 days ahead of the, so we can't really wait, so.
No further questions.
Okay.
Your witness.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we still need the discussion of emergency purchase for prosecuting attorney?
No.
Okay. Do we have any other issues?
Do you want a small COVID update?
Yes, please. Yes.
I attended the city council meeting virtually last night, so I thought I would at least give you the same update. I didn't bring my notes, but I think I'll be able to wing it. So yesterday morning, we did have our meeting with the hospitals as usual. Cap Region had 26 patients in-house, some on isolation, some not. St. Mary's had 41, which I think Dr. Adams said that was one of the highest numbers, or nearing the highest numbers they've had, some in isolation, some off. They did say that about 85% of the patients, 80 to 85% of the patients they had hospitalized with COVID were unvaccinated. So I know that there's been a lot of reports nationally about 97 to 99% in the hospital are unvaccinated, but that's not holding true in Cole County. Or I think that might have been the case a couple months ago, but as we're seeing the number of breakthrough cases increase, we're also seeing the number of vaccinated people get sicker and be hospitalized. I don't know, what's causing that. There's a lot of theories, but right now it's 80 to 85% are unvaccinated in the hospital. They did authorize a third shot to be giving, a booster dose to be given to immunocompromised people. There was some discussion about how that would be, for lack of a better word, regulated, because anyone could come to us and say, I'm immunocompromised, I need my third dose. But all of the physicians agreed that they would like them to see their physician to talk about that third dose, because if they are truly immunocompromised and had an organ transplant or something like that, they would have a regular physician that they should see and talk about that third dose. So we have a press release that's ready to go out. It was ready yesterday, but Cap Region had a few changes to that testing and vaccine flyer that we have. So we're waiting on those changes to be made, and then I'll send a press release out just so people know where they should go for that third dose, and just an update on where they can get vaccines and testing in Cole County. There's still plenty of vaccine here, whether it's retail pharmacies or doctor's offices or the health department on Thursdays. The health department has been very busy lately. We are always busy late July and early August with all of the back-to-school immunizations. We try to encourage parents to get those early in the summer, but they have a tendency to wait. So I know last week at the end of the week we were very busy. Lots of birth certificates because kiddos need those for school as well, and then immunizations. We still offer antibody testing for people who want to see if they have the antibodies for COVID-19 at the health department for $20. It's a finger poke, takes about 15 minutes. And then I did see in the news this morning talking about authorizing a third dose for everyone 8 months after their first and second dose. So we'll wait for the ACIP guidelines, and then for us to be able to give those vaccines, we also do need that standing order to be updated from Department of Health and Senior Services that we're operating under, and they've not sent us any update to that standing order. We've also not received anything about that incentive program that they're asking the LPHAs to administer, that they announced probably, a month ago, the governor announced that when he announced, so we still have not received any information about that. We heard that they're trying to increase it to $100 instead of $25. Still no guidance. Seems like there's
I don't
missing
think they're
something.
really talking about, they're more into the $10,000.
Right. The good news is, like last week, I hope this trend stays true, last week our positive cases looked like we had a slight decrease, and then yesterday I was on a statewide call and they said statewide the number of positive cases is trending downward, which is good. It'll just take a little while for the hospitalizations to catch up. So hopefully we've turned a corner and the positive cases are starting to decline. So, and then we've worked with the schools. We've been meeting with them for almost 2 years now. And, we really talked a lot this summer about the protocols and what they should go back. And we developed this framework that has like green, and if you're operating green, this is what you should do. Very minimal. If you're in yellow, this is what you should do. No assemblies, maybe masks. If you can't social distance, all these different guidelines. Red is this. And we worked together and we developed all of that. And then, our guidance from DHSS was that any of those mandates should be a local school board decision. So once we worked with them to develop this guideline, we left it up to them as to what level they started in, because part of your level is determined by what's going on in the community, but part of it's determined on what's going on in your school. And we wanted it to be that way because, Eugene might not have any cases, but Bel Air might have cases and they might need to move to yellow when Eugene's still in green, and that's appropriate. And, Jeff City School District, they have 11 elementary, so one elementary could be in red and the other one could be in green, just depending on what's going on in their school environment. So I would just ask that everybody have some patience and some grace with the school districts because, like us, they're in a difficult spot. No matter what decision they made, people were going to be mad and people were going to be angry because it's all became very polarizing and very controversial. So I think we're all trying to do the best we can based on the science that's out there, and then based on what we learned last year being in seat all year when lots of other school districts didn't do that. They learned that kids don't transmit the virus as well as adults. We also learned that by quarantining all those kids, very rarely did it result in a positive case. Most of the exposure that resulted in positive cases was household exposure, not school exposure. So we learned a lot, and we tried to apply that knowledge to that plan for this year and how they started the new year. So yesterday, I received multiple media requests about the Jeff City School District meeting last night. I didn't even know what their decision was going to be, and they wanted me to comment on it, and I wouldn't make a comment because we're going to support the schools, the parents, the faculty, and the kids as best we can. We're not here to second guess their decisions. We're not here to critique them. We're here to be a support system, and that's what we're going to do. Any questions?
Did you say where you can get antibody tests, or are y'all still doing them out there?
Health department.
Okay.
And I think some of the other retail pharmacies have them like GURPS, but we do them there at the health
Yeah,
department.
they got a lot of lines there right now
Yeah.
for people getting tested,
Yeah.
so. Okay, I thought
And
you
just
said
walk
that
in.
we could still do them.
Walk in,
And then
$20.
it's $20, so you can find out if you have the antibodies and
Mhm.
if that's part of your decision-making process.
Mhm. And it's interesting because I've heard that some people who got the vaccine went ahead and had their antibodies tested and they didn't have the antibodies. So does that mean their vaccine's waning? Does that mean their body didn't build an immune response to the vaccine? So it's very interesting to me.
Well, I had, it's easy, it's painless, takes 15 minutes of your day,
Mhm.
and it worked in my case, so that's fine. If this may be you're looking in your crystal ball, but this potential booster, is that no matter which vaccine you received?
Right now for the immunocompromised, it's just Pfizer and Moderna. They haven't authorized another dose for Johnson & Johnson. And I just caught a little snippet of that headline about booster doses for everyone coming soon. So I don't know about that. But, I mean, at the health department, we pretty much, that's all we did for months was vaccines. And I don't know if we can really dedicate that much staff to just giving those COVID-19 vaccines. Again, we have a lot of other business to do at the health department. So it'll be very interesting on how the booster doses will roll out. Thank goodness there's lots of other places in town to get them. Every doctor's office has them now. So that's really good. But I haven't heard anything about the Johnson & Johnson, just Pfizer and Moderna so far.
It was 8 months. I was looking at so January 26th is when I had my second shot. So I would be eligible, I guess, September, anytime after September 26th. So
Correct.
I think they would still be spread out, but I don't know how they arrived at 8 months.
I don't know, because we've, in our breakthrough cases, some of them, it's more recent than that, 2 or 3 or 4 months, but about 20% of the cases we receive on a daily basis are breakthrough cases.
Is there any consistency in route of exposure or anything that you're seeing on those breakthroughs?
Oh, no, I mean, most of it's household exposure, but there is employer and travel still a big high-risk activity. So all these people that travel got their last trip in right before school starts
Yeah.
really scares me. But, and then I know a lot of people have asked if it's one certain vaccine, and I think it's distributed we're seeing it with all of them. I think our community gave more Pfizer, so we're seeing more Pfizer, but it's not one over the other. It's all three.
One thing that I wanted to share, and I don't know if this is appropriate, the Eagle 93.9 in Columbia, the radio station, consistently, at least once a week, mentions Christie as
Oh,
being an
thank you.
authority, and how well she's doing, and how they're mirroring her information to assist in Boone County. So they're using you as an example.
Well, thank you,
Good.
thank you. We decided
should.
to write, one thing that, our staff are great. I mean, we have great staff at the health department. And we decided, with antibody testing, if kids had had last year, if they had a COVID infection within 90 days, they didn't have to quarantine, they had the antibodies. So we were able this year to write in the plan that if they were able to show a current antibody test, that they would not have to quarantine. And we have the CDC guidance to support that, and the rest of the Region F counties, I think, are going to adopt that we kind of started. So that was good. Good.
So when you do an antibody test, do you give them some sort of document?
We do. And that way they wouldn't have to quarantine then. We're trying to keep kids in school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Christie.
Thanks. So let's go back to the purchasing policy. Do we need to change our purchasing policy, or, I guess we talked about that a little bit this morning, Jill. I'm still confused on how we have to follow a bidding process, but maybe other
Well.
slush funds don't have to, or do they have to? Do we need
That's
to?
not exactly right. Okay.
Because it's probably clear as mud right now on that.
Well,
and
the
just
prosecuting
need to know
attorney.
for everybody if we need to change the policy, so.
Well, there's a difference between the prosecuting attorney and the collector and recorder. And this, this is all lawyer-esque, but the prosecuting attorney's statutes that have to do with the bad check are the delinquent tax fund and the administrative handling fund, which used to be bad check, but since they put in percentage of restitution, they have renamed it and put it in the same statute. Says notwithstanding and lists the statutes in the county budget
The bidding
chapter,
statutes.
which includes the
Bidding
bidding
requirement
statutes.
statutes.
Yes,
That's just the prosecutor's
just the prosecutor's
funding
statutes,
statute.
okay? The collector and recorder statutes do not say notwithstanding the span of statutes. So, it's the prosecuting attorney, that could be interpreted so that the bidding statute doesn't apply to those funds. On the other hand, in that subsection, it has a list of things. So the question of it doesn't go to county general revenue, it doesn't, the treasurer sets aside a separate account, and you have nobody but the prosecutor can decide how it's spent, and on and on. So, is that notwithstanding these span of statutes apply only to the things listed in the rest of that subsection? Or does it apply to everything in that span of statutes? It could be argued either way. There is no case law interpretation. There's nothing. So, I'm not going to say for sure that the prosecutor has to bid things out, but I am going to strongly recommend, as a matter of best practices, that the PA's office does bid out, comply with that for purposes of those funds. So that's,
It is clear that the prosecuting attorney's office is a little different than the general office and the collector's funds, who else did you mention? The recorder and assessor as well?
no, well, the assessment fund's entirely different because by statute, the county commission
Oh, that's
is
all
the
right.
one that makes expenditures out of the assessment fund. So the assessor, and this, of course, has been litigated and is the Western District Court of Appeals opinion that the assessor has no control over the assessment fund.
Got it.
But the collector and recorder do have complete control over their funds. It just doesn't have that same provision that the prosecutor's statute has, as far as despite that span of statutes.
Yeah, Locke's predecessor made purchases.
Well, yeah, Mark didn't bid out the drones.
No,
Well, that
no,
doesn't make it right.
no.
So
No,
it is, I don't know, my question is, how can they get around bidding stuff? It's county money, it just came to them and it's in their checking account. So,
Because
it's
it's-
taxpayers' money, let me rephrase that, it's taxpayers' money.
Well, it might not be a taxpayer's money if it's a non-taxpayer who is paying restitution for something they did as they passed through the county. They may not be a taxpayer. They may have been
Maybe some
a
non-taxpayers,
transient.
sales
But
tax
you're right.
does, so
Yeah,
you can go down it.
Well, I was going to ask you, it's clear as mud, right?
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
delinquent tax fund, he gets a cut of what he collects. So that's coming from, basically, and the administrative handling fund is a portion of restitution.
I was just trying to make a distinction without a difference. If someone from 6 counties over wrote a bad check in Cole County
Yes.
and there was money then collected from that bad
Yes.
check writer and it landed in, I don't think that person is a taxpayer of Cole
No.
County. But unless maybe they paid some sales tax when they wrote
Maybe,
the check.
apparently they wrote it in Cole County, so it was one of our taxpayers that was supposed to be receiving it or something, so it's our courts that handled it, so that's why it comes through here. So is it that statute that says notwithstanding is the one that?
That's what,
makes
the
it-
provisions in the prosecutor's 2 statutes that have to do with his funds have that provision. And that provision has not been interpreted. So I don't think I can tell him absolutely, you have to bid everything out, because he could point to that and say, well, because my statute says despite what is in these statutes, this is how my fund works. But, as I said, I am going to strongly encourage him to bid things out, because I think that is probably a best practice.
So they are currently not under a separate purchasing policy, so the purchasing policies of the county currently apply to all funds of the county. So there's no differentiation between the prosecutor's funds that they don't fall under our purchasing policies. So I think that if we say that there is an exception, we need to note that, because those policies are then used to supply to grant funding and things like that as the county's purchasing policies. He does have 2 grants that he currently receives in his office. So if we're going to say there's an exception, we need to note that exception in those purchasing policies that are then used by outside people.
But Kristen, those grant funds aren't part of those statutes, special fund statutes.
Correct.
So that would still, and anything else he gets, and that's something like if you purchased with grant funds, would be signed by the commission.
Correct.
So
But
it would still.
But I'm saying if there's an exception, we need to put that exception in the policy so that.
Yeah, I
so
don't
that-
think you accept offices, I think you accept funds.
Correct. So
So-
I think that it needs to be amended to have that exception in there if we are.
For
making
those
that
2
ex-
funds.
Yes, if we're making that exception.
Is this money even in our, I mean, are we showing it in the prosecuting attorney's monies or?
Yes, so they are a separate fund that are reported by us.
Okay, they are,
So
okay.
they're included in our
Okay,
financial
okay,
package.
Okay,
But he signs the checks and it is countersigned by the treasurer.
Correct.
okay.
Kristen does not sign off on their contracts. None of that.
Okay.
But those things are true also for the recorder and collector. That they sign the checks and the treasurer, do you sign their checks?
I do not sign the collector's checks, but I do the recorder and the clerk.
And the clerk, okay. Oh yeah, I forget about the election, whatever. I mean, as I said, you could interpret that, make a legal argument either way. And we could tell him one way and he says, no, I interpret it this way, and there's nothing you can
So
do.
if we want him to bid stuff though, because I just don't see any way around having to bid it. I think you should still have to bid it. That, I mean, you're reading it that way where they don't have to bid it, but
Well, I'm saying, Jeff,
So if
an
we
argument
require
can
him
be
to
made
bid it-
either way, but we can't make him. If he chooses to interpret it that he is exempted from all the requirements in that span of statutes.
So we could tell him that he needs to bid these, he can just also go pound stone.
You bet.
And they're really not,
But then I'd want some clarification though, that tells us for sure which way it is. I don't want this being able to argue both sides. Either we can tell him, go bid it, and he has to, and he's got whatever findings.
Well, the only way you get clarification is if you get a Court of Appeals opinion. And this issue
So
has
you're
not
saying
been
we gotta sue
litigated.
ourselves?
Say what?
So you're saying we have to sue ourselves? That's not, I just want somebody to clarify it, so who made this statute? The state did. So the state should be able to tell us what the hell it means. Because we can't tell them obviously right now, so somebody needs to tell us what it means.
Well-
Has an AG opinion,
Well, he can ask for one.
and we couldn't.
Well, I suppose the commission could, but they're gonna want an opinion from him and me. And good luck getting one from him anyway.
Well, if you are asked to submit your argument, and you don't bring one, then
My
that's just
argument is it can be interpreted either way.
it shouldn't be. It should be one way or the other. Either he's got to bid it or he doesn't have to bid it.
Well-
And it shouldn't be both ways in my view. There should be one way or the other.
I guess we can ask him in the future.
Well,
to-
I'll
to
just
bid 'em,
talk-
But again,
I'll
He doesn't
talk
do
to
any
him.
He
good
doesn't
at this
have to,
point, because
yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
it does go pound stones.
yeah.
I'll talk to him lawyer to lawyer,
If
because
they
he'll
come up-
understand what I'm saying.
If they come up to us and say, well, you know what, this was written so that they didn't, you all have no control over the money, you can't make them bid it, then we put it to rest. But if we have to bid it, I think it all needs to be bid. We need to do the same thing across the whole county-wide stuff. If we're gonna bid it, bid it. And Kristen mentioned the federal, if we got positions up there that are federally funded, if they're using some of these laptops in this instance, we could lose money. I don't know. So, I just think it should be clearer than mud.
Well,
So-
talk to him lawyer to lawyer and just see.
I want clarification somewhere. I mean, if
Yeah.
you talk to them.
Well,
like
we don't
lawyers,
have any
it's like-
legislative intent, because in Missouri, there is, with Congress, the federal legislature, they have congressional records of debate and all of that. So you can go back and consult with that and see what people were saying and what their argument is in order to ascertain legislative intent. The state of Missouri, you do not have that. So what's in front of you is what's in front of you. And the only interpretations you're going to get are through court opinions interpreting the law. So until you get that, there is no clear interpretation
So let's write the
someplace
judge a
else.
letter and ask him to give us his opinion.
They don't give advisory opinions.
Then how the hell do we get the answer to this?
Well, there's got to be some case or controversy, some lawsuit
There is a controversy. We're arguing about it right now, so.
that is filed in court.
All right, let's go have an argument up there in front of them. And I
Well-
just don't see how they can go without bidding stuff. I don't
He,
give a care about him getting his laptops or whatever else he wants to get with it, but I think we have to be compliant with some kind of bidding requirements. I really do.
I think
don't there's
that,
any way around it.
even that fund, back when his predecessor, one day he brought me down a check for $25,000 that he
Yeah,
wanted.
where'd that go,
That he
Sam?
wanted the sheriff to use to buy one of these license
ever
plate
clear?
readers. And so here I have this check, and Sheriff Wheeler said, I don't want one of these, I don't. So then I tried to give it back, and Mark didn't want it, and I'm sitting there going, ah. So I think I finally put it in an envelope, put it in their mailbox, and it ended up going back up. But yeah, if it had been made payable to me, you know.
You have a couple more
Yeah,
roads.
Tahiti. I don't know. But I mean, again, that's from one of his special funds that, you know, it was for law enforcement, but, you know, that money just came out of the air. So,
So the three options is take him to court, Attorney General's opinion, or you talk to him.
I'll just talk to him.
yes, I think.
You're not gonna get
That's-
an AG opinion.
Oh, no.
I mean, if they.
Well, they used to have AGs that would issue opinions.
We're suing China. He doesn't have time for
They
this.
don't.
So give me the statutes.
And-
You may have already sent them to him, but get me the ones that you're gonna talk lawyer with him and,
Yeah, I
couple
have them
other
written down at
sources
my
I wanna
desk.
check and see what we can do and.
Jeff, I think I've seen a flyer that the MAC conference, or maybe it's Missouri Association of County Commissioners, whatever that conference is in November.
Mac, yeah.
Okay, so they've asked for topics they wish to have discussed there. I think this would be a great topic for some folks to get in front of county commissioners around the state and say, here's the big skinny on these different officials, elected officials in your county, what they can and cannot do as with respect to purchasing and how it applies to the regular purchasing procedures that the regular statutes.
So then you
They're
have
looking-
two sides up there that can argue.
Well,
both
sure,
sides.
we'll put it in the middle of the day, so you'll be there.
It'll be the first thing in the morning, I can get it out of the way,
Okay.
7 AM.
So it's November 21st and 22nd, I think.
Yeah.
So get.
Yeah, I've got.
I'll send that. I'll say.
I don't have the
Eastern
application
District
yet.
Commissioner of Cole
Yeah,
County
yeah,
wants you to
but-
talk about this.
No, I wanna take care of it here, I'm not worried about them, they have their own little problems.
Well, that's true, but you know what? When we try to fix we're one of 114 counties, and I've got to believe that a number of the other counties have the same question, the same issue. It pops up. It's not like we're all out on an island figuring out how to run a county government. There's a lot of compatriots out there
Yeah,
doing the
most of
same
them
thing.
aren't gonna have enough money to have to bid anything anyway, it's fun.
Yeah.
The smaller counties. So that's always the chore for MAC is to find stuff that applies to first class and third class counties and stuff.
They do though breakout sessions by class, don't they often?
Yeah, first class.
Yeah, at the on Sunday they do. But, okay. Anything else on that? Well, Greg's here too. We were talking yesterday. We've got to start moving on what we're going to do with 209 and what we're going to do with the basement of the Carnegie because, you know, we're going to end up with 4 new attorneys here and, we've said, yes, we're going to put them in the basement of the Carnegie, but we need to get going on that. We need to get going on what we're going to do on 209 so that, you know, Greg can move what he has in storage over there. And so I think we had talked to Architects Alliance. Greg, is that?
I think Harry's talked.
Okay.
I talked with.
Exactly where we're at.
I talked with Carrie, but it was a view from about 50,000 feet for the area in and around 209 Adams, and not necessarily specifically 209 Adams. So we really haven't sat down with anyone who says what's the best way to get Greg in the backside of that building. Is it the right thing to take part of the building down? Is it better to put some garage doors on the north side of the building that he could get in and out with his trailer? If we did that, we wouldn't be picking up any parking. If we did take part of the building down, we would be picking up some needed parking spaces. So those are the issues that are out there, and I'm not sure how to generate the inertia to get the ball rolling. Who wants to be the lead on that, or who we contact to make it happen. But the clock is ticking on the arrival of additional attorneys in the public defender's office. Justin Carver has said they could, quote, double bunk for a short period of time when they show up, but they do need the relief, and we got to get going.
Yeah, so,
I'll get some papers and a tape measure and some crayons, and let's go over there and let's look at what you're wanting to do, what you need, and let's measure it up, and then because you have to have that before you tell an architect what you want to draw up. So it's hard for them to go into it blind and say, well, we want you to build us this beautiful house. All right, you draw it on paper, you don't have a clue what you're starting with. So I think I'm fine, we can go over there right now. Let's see what you want to do and try to figure it out. And even if it's 2 different options or 3, we'll give them starting points. Because I was looking at a shell and an office
That's all I'm looking at.
and figure out which is the easiest way to pull a trailer in there.
well, we can keep it as it is and put garage doors in. We're still gonna have to put HVAC and things like that in it.
For the office portion.
Yeah, and then you've got the bathrooms there, so, but I mean, that's, we just need to give Greg some direction, because we need to, kind of start working on that then, and get everything out of the basement of the Carnegie, so, that's gonna be the next thing, is we configure that to,
You guys have plans for the existing building?
209, I don't have any plans. I've just got something I drew up and gave to Harry.
That's good enough. I mean,
Yeah.
that's my idea of having a drawing. You got
Okay.
stick people and one of them's shooting a bow at a stick deer, so.
Yeah.
That works for me. I need some dimensions. I'll go over and look at what right now after we get done here, and I don't have to be the lead on it, but I mean, we can throw some ideas out there. Or did you have some way you're wanting to go, or were you wanting to save the building and then
No.
just more room? or
I don't,
demolish some?
I just think we need to,
The,
make plans so that Greg can relocate and also take all of the surplus property that's
We-
down the basement and.
it's assumed, I think, and accepted that Greg's going there is not a permanent spot for Greg.
No,
This is temporary, so we won't build a Taj Mahal or for
No.
Greg over there. And then talking about the demolition of 209, if you take 209 down, the engineers say that the way or the alley, we call them ways in this part of the country, that way is a couple feet above the elevation of the floor, and if you take the trusses off the top, those walls, whatever you leave there, are not going to be strong enough to keep the street where it is. In other words, the street's going to fall onto the floor of the old building. So maybe that makes us not take the building down and put the garage doors and just let those outside walls still be supported by the trusses on top.
that'd be the easiest way.
One of the, what we first thought about doing was taking it down all the way back to parallel with those offices back there. But then as it says, then we've got a wall problem, and we'd have to erect a wall, which is probably only temporary, but still has to be strong enough. So that might be sunk costs that we don't want to incur. So that's kind of where we have competing issues, and the biggest issue is we don't want to spend money there that's going to be torn down shortly thereafter, probably.
Right. Let's just roll over and look at it when we're done here. I mean, it doesn't matter to me whichever way we do it. We just have to
Yeah,
have some direction
well, we
for
just need to
them
get going. Okay,
to look at, so.
okay. Anything else?
No, the last time I did, it took us 45 minutes to get done.
No, I'll just give you, I did send an email to DKB to find out about a needs assessment and how we proceed forward with this, and she should be coming back shortly to you guys with that.
Yeah, we have one of our water districts that wants to know when we're gonna start doing that, and I think the library is also, so,
I have it, but at the MAC board meeting, Travis Elliott, his recommendation to the group was to wait for that final rule. We're hoping it's coming. We're all hoping and praying it's coming, but to kind of wait for that final rule so we know for sure what is allowed and what is not. So we're all kind of in that holding pattern of waiting for that final rule to come.
Yeah, the News Tribune had an article too about the city, Steve Kraus.
I mean, I don't think
Yeah.
that a needs assessment is a bad idea in the interim to try to figure out what those needs of the community is. But, we're all waiting to pull the trigger on
Yeah.
those fixed expenditures until we have that final rule.
Yeah.
We're currently with a 196-page interim final rule.
Correct.
So that's all I just wanted.
But there was a comment period on that interim final rule, and I think they received thousands of comments on changes to it. So we're all expecting it to change slightly between the interim final and the final.
So are those gonna say what you can use it on or what you can't?
It has a little bit of both. Right now, there's, in the interim final rule, I think there's only 2 things that you cannot spend it on. You can't offset a reduction in taxes, you cannot pay into your pension funds. So it's very, very clear those are excluded. But then it also goes through some vague ways that you can use it.
What would I say realistically, probably September sometime?
I would guess at this point, yes. I think there were some big hopes it would be here by the end of August, but I don't know that that's going to happen.
There are a lot of counties that haven't even applied for it yet.
Correct.
I was shocked by that.
It wasn't easy to apply. It was harder.
Yeah, that was a good joke too.
We do have an interim report that's due the end of August. It is on any expenditures or obligations we've incurred from March 3rd through the end of July. We did not have any expenditures or obligations in that time frame, so we will be submitting that report, but we will have quarterly reporting from that point forward.
Does it revert to calendar quarter?
Yes, I think it does,
So the next one would be a 2-month period, perhaps?
possibly.
August, September?
I think I think it's through September, but our reporting's not due till the end of October.
Right,
So.
okay.
Okay. Anything else?
I don't think so.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn and stand in recess until 4:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Greg, I'll grab my crayons. Can you give me a picture?
Yeah, let me get you a piece of paper.
Actually, Greg, if you kind of know what the dimensions are and stuff, I don't have to